It's perfect! A utopia without fault! And beyond the most refined lenses of scrutiny. Anyone who disagrees shall be burned at the stake in the name of the Lord of Light, who delivered us the one true king! Stannis the Baratheon, first of his name, has taken what is his by right and crushed all opposition! What does his reign look like, and how do we deliver this video without saying anything remotely negative about our beloved king, but still deliver a somewhat unbiased take absent of sycophantic adoration that borders on the creepy?
Love you, Manis.
I've got it, Tom! Scapegoats! Every time we say something negative, we'll say it came from those pesky non-believers over in our Discord server. Put their names up, Tom. Shame them. Shame them. Shame them all! Also, just to be abundantly clear, this is a realm under the book version of Stannis. There's so much difference in this character's two primary iterations that I think this distinction is warranted. So if you at us with
But he burns his daughter!
know that for the time being at least, you're basically talking about a different guy. And now, a quick word from our sponsor, Fandome. So, if you like Star Wars and want to help your pals over at the Fandome out, please consider heading over, subscribing, and checking out the videos. Now take us back to Westeros, Tom. Well, I don't know how to do it either. Mel, I'm sorry for calling you a red bitch. Please help us get back. Thank you. Let's start in the same place we did with Littlefinger, and that is the character of the Manis, and the personality traits that may factor into his rule. Please note, as is the case anytime we have a bosh at some armchair psychology, we are speaking rather broadly here and using surface-level observations to reach our conclusions. Now, if you were to look up the term absolutist in the Westeros dictionary, you would find not a bunch of squiggles forming words that would describe the term, you would instead find this face staring back at you. When it comes to his personal beliefs, His Grace sees the world in two distinctive shades, black and white. There is no grey, there is no middle ground, and a good act does not wash out the bad, nor the bad the good. And may the Lord of Light help you if you find yourself in the camp of wrong. But here's where, in my opinion, I think some people get it wrong, and that's in understanding that Stannis' code of absolutism does not stem from the traditional morality concepts of good and evil, but rather duty and disregarding it. Stannis' dilemma isn't a simplistic, is it good or evil to kill someone, it's whether or not calling for that person's death or sparing their life is in service to his duty as king, or, fobbing it off. Does the law demand death or mercy? Ultimately, is it an act of justice or injustice? This will of course then cause the non-believers to say,
well then, Stannis is a massive fucking hypocrite, ain't he?
Using the prime example of his eventual willingness to sacrifice an innocent boy, which, difficult to rationalize as anything other than an act of injustice when looked upon as an individual act. But again, this is where people misunderstand what drives the Manis' motivations. The absolutism of Stannis' code isn't based on the individual, it's the grand scale of the realm. Give Stannis the trolley problem, and he'll make his choice based on his duty as king, not what he personally feels is right or wrong. If diverting the trolley to hit one person will save 5 people, he'll press that switch. And vice versa, if diverting the trolley to hit 5 people will save 1 person, who would then in turn go on to save the realm by preventing a war through some means, he'll pull that lever.
Well, you didn't think I forgot about you, did you?
This absolutism is tempered with a sense of pragmatism, a trait no effective leader can be without, in fairness. His Grace understands that the world of ice and fire excoriates under a moral binary. Thus, he reconciles reality with his black and white worldviews, not with the concept of permanent irredeemability, but with the notion of restoring balance. Restoring balance is the driving force behind Stannis' sense of justice. It's all about proportional response. If you screw up under his grace, you must atone in a manner that is in accordance with the severity of your crime to restore balance to the scales of justice. No more, no less, no excuses, and no exceptions. People very often overlook that Stannis informs Mel that she'll pay with her life if she's wrong about sacrificing Edric. Stannis may be harsh and stern, but he's also fair, and balance will be restored, even if you're a super hot redhead with dark magic.
Burn her, Manus. Her attractiveness does not outweigh her annoyance.
And... oh my, that really is saying something. This isn't to say that His Grace doesn't have a sense of good and evil. He clearly does. And his moral compass actually points pretty straight if we look at how he struggles with decisions of questionable morality. Two great examples being his clear hesitancy to condemn Robb to Mel's leech curse, which, while never outright stated, can be inferred to have been motivated by Stannis' feeling that of all the filthy, disgusting, traitorous usurpers, Robb is the only one not motivated by greed or power, but by a desire for justice for his father and his people, which Stannis may have believed meant he might have been open to seeing the light given a little time. And the second, of course, being the aforementioned Edric if you're a book reader, or Gendry if you're a filthy show-only watching muggle. The show doesn't make as big a deal of Stannis' reluctance with Gendry. He just seems mildly conflicted. But in the books, it should be noted just how many times the Manus tells Mel to fuck off when she wants to sacrifice the boy. And he does not relent until seeing overwhelming evidence that Mel's powers, be they divine or arcane, are absolutely real, and thus her prophecies are likely accurate. It takes the death of all of the pretenders. Not one, not two, but all three of them, and only after this was achieved does Stannis come to believe that it is in fact Edric's duty to the realm to sacrifice himself. And thus, it finally falls in line with Stannis' code to put him on the fires. We should also note, though, that uniquely this event also kind of causes His Grace's absolutist greater good outlook to outright waver, paradoxically making him an absolutist who could not be absolute, and giving those filthy non-believers fuel for the fires of their hypocrisy claims, which I will burn them on.
Love you, Manus.
You can theorize with a decent degree of logical reason that he in fact told Davos of his intentions with Edric and allowed a full night before the ritual as a means of empowering Davos with the chance to do what Stannis' duty could not allow. This is why he likely forgives Davos for what is technically outright treason when the law dictates that offense carry a capital punishment, because he knew Davos had actually been doing his duty as Hand and was right and just all along. And it was in fact the Manus who was perpetuating injustice, a mistake he atones for by riding to save the Night's Watch. Now you might say this is a bad thing, because it shows that the Manus is not in fact rigidly adherent to his code, and non-believers are probably cheering that the man known for not bending does indeed bend.
That's right, keep cheering, you treasonous wankers. The noise making it all the easier to hunt you down.
But in fact, it can be viewed as a positive to his rulership, and that's without my Manus simping bias too. It shows that he'll take his for the greater good mentality to the absolute extreme, but if you push him, as in really push him to the brink of madness, reason will win out and pull him back from the edge, and that even he is not exempt from the scales of justice and must also restore balance if he disturbs them. Another core personality trait that factors into His Grace's rule is his healthy disgust of nepotism. Name alone means fuck all to him, and it, along with brown-nosing, isn't going to get you very far. Stannis actively dislikes nobles who believe blood, and sycophantic adoration is a shield for ineptitude, and much prefers competence and honesty for company. Best evidenced with Sir Davos, but also shown with the chads he trusted to hold down Storm's End for him. This most certainly has a positive impact on his rule, because it means a job goes to the most qualified applicant, rather than the guy whose dad is best friends with the company's boss, which means lesser numbers of incompetent... Tom, how do they keep getting in? Which means fewer numbers of incompetent individuals in positions of power. Finally, the last dominant and relevant trait to the Manus' personality that would factor into his rule is liking and subscribing to this video and heading on over to our Discord server and joining the fun. And maybe supporting us on Patreon if you're so inclined. Check the description for the links, and now back to how Stannis' joyless nature is a real deal breaker for many people. For his grace, joy and happiness is a luxury a realm and its ruler can ill afford if it wants to survive. It gets in the way of efficiency and wastes resources that are better employed on more practical aspects. Damn right it does, Manus! This is part of what makes him an immensely capable military commander. He counts his beans, buys what he needs, and doesn't buy any fancy cosmetic add-ons, and he'd rather get stuck into his work over goofing off and socializing. Basically, no damn DLCs or paywalls. What results is a tightly run ship, but not a fun vessel to be aboard. Some people love living to work, but most people prefer working to live. Stannis doesn't lead with charisma, he leads by example. But not everyone wants to follow that suck it up and grit your teeth example. Not me, though. In fact, my king, give me more work. I'm still getting 2 whole hours of sleep a night, and that's time that could be better spent serving you. This is a guy that would rather check the numbers twice to make sure they are correct over going hunting in the Kingswood or visiting his favorite tavern for a quick pint. The realm won't be beautiful, but it'll run smoothly thanks to his grace's function over form approach. When you combine these personality traits of the Manus into a primary trait, you don't end up with pragmatism like you do with Littlefinger, you get fairness. Stern, humorless fairness. And just so we don't get pulled up on this, we'll address the brothel thing. Maybe Stannis tries to ban brothels and this causes trouble. But honestly, that proposal seemed to be more about curbing Littlefinger's power as well as giving the Manus a means of investigating Joffrey's heritage rather than a sincere attempt to actually ban pleasure houses. Stannis clearly isn't fond of such establishments, that much is true, but assuming he's successful in stomping out corruption and these establishments are better regulated, I'm not sure he'd lose sleep over their existence, and understanding that this is not something he could feasibly stamp out, might find it preferable over seedier underground operations. Just my opinion though, I know with the prudish nature of the Manus, you may be able to interpret his intentions as completely legitimate. So, that's the Manus' personality and ideals, now let's have a look at what he actually wants. He never states it outright, but his grace wears his intentions on his sleeve well enough that he doesn't really have to. Stannis wants to maintain the system of a hereditary monarchy, but where he differs from most of the other throne contenders, and why we book readers fucking love him, is he wants his monarchy supported from underneath by the foundations of meritocracy. And unlike Littlefinger's idea of meritocracy, in which his aim is to be the last nobody who becomes a somebody, the Manus really does seem to want to give anyone who deserves it a fair shake to prove themselves, regardless of low birth. The obvious example is Ser Chados and his onions, and the next best known is that bastard Jon Snow, but even people as lowborn as the wildlings are given a chance to prove themselves worthy of a place in his realm. Your worth in the eyes of the Manus is what you can do, not who you are. Stannis doesn't hide his intentions for his kingdom. Corruption and incompetence will be stamped out, and justice and law in its place, all dealt with a fair, even hand. This can be accomplished as well. Our own history has shown you can have an effective monarchy with a strong meritocratic focus in its officials. Notable examples include the Roman Empire with emperors like Trajan and Hadrian in the west, and the Ottoman and Persian empires in the east. So, we have these admirable attainable aims. But is there anything standing in the Manus' way? Of course there fucking is! This is Westeros. Nothing's ever bloody easy. There are checkpoints to clear before the Manus can shape the realm to his vision. The first is the people's potential reaction to his having a foreign religious fanatic by his side who brings with her a religion that is very much at odds with what you find in Westeros. Now, it's key to note Book Stannis is not himself a fanatic of R'hllor, and often tells Mel to shove her religion where the sun doesn't shine when it's not doing anything useful. In fact, he's not particularly religious in any regard and borders on the atheistic. This is to say, the vision some people have of Stannis ensuring every sept, weirwood tree and holy building is torn down to make room for temples of light, and this in turn causing mass uprisings and religious revolts, is kind of a reach. That being said, if Mel is around in this scenario and has helped him gain the throne, she's proven she's useful and competent, which means Manus is likely not only going to accommodate her religion in his realm as a reward for service, but also likely place her in a position of authority, possibly even on the small council as the Master of Whispers. People aren't going to like that. Especially the High Septum, and the fallout really does depend on what sort of power the Faith are wielding in a climate where the Manus has taken power, and just how hard Stannis puts his foot down. I don't think it would be full-scale rebellion out of the gate, but smaller religious revolts aren't off the table, and if handled poorly, could fan the flames to full-blown rebellion down the line. The next roadblock is the same one Littlefinger had, and that's the nobility. Quite simply, like Littlefinger, the Manus brings significant change to the dynamics of the totem pole, and the people already at the top of it will not be keen on this, and thus will actively resist him. And that's before considering that the Manus is not the most charismatic individual, and can't cultivate loyalty through a vibrant and charismatic personality. Unlike Littlefinger, we know Stannis is a brilliant military commander, so the struggle is not in the matter of putting these lords in their place on the battlefield. The question is, does he have enough support to field an army big enough to squash such resistance? Because 1,500 knights commanded by the Manus versus the 100k army of the Reach. I mean, I love the Manus, but I am realistic. He'd probably only take out 90,000 of them before they got him. And if he does have the means, there is one final checkpoint to clear before we can see what the realm looks like. Can he stamp out the corruption without, quote marks, choking on his food, end quote marks? Like with the nobles, the corrupt, scheming arseholes aren't just going to lay down while the Manus cleans house and purges their filth from all the governing bodies. And these guys pose a far greater threat than the standard nobles, because these guys won't field an army against the Manus.
They'll strike from the shadows.
And unlike Littlefinger, it's unlikely Stannis will play their game. If Mel's around, I'm not sure this is all that big a concern. She's a highly effective anti-assassin and pretty much a schemer's worst fucking nightmare, and you've also got Davos, who has a keen eye for the seedy since he himself comes from such humble beginnings. But if Davos is the Manus' lone shield against the filthy scum, this is the most pressing concern and most difficult checkpoint to clear. But let's assume these obstacles are indeed navigated and Stannis secures total power, because he's the fucking Manus. What does the realm look like? A realm under Stannis is strong, secure, efficient, and safe for all those who follow the rule of law. The right and most qualified people are placed into positions of power, with taxes going where they are supposed to, and invested into bettering the realm as a whole, rather than squandered on lavish parties for the nobility, or for them to fritter away your hard-earned dragons on tawnies, blackjack, and hookers. In fact, forget the tawnies! Gold star to anyone who comments that reference. The crown and its administration becomes a well-oiled machine of both political and military might that is focused on serving its people, bringing both a strong, well-managed economy and a well-trained and equipped military that would make other nations think twice about invasion. Thanks to the meritocratic elements of Stannis' institutions, those with gumption who play by the rules are rewarded with positions of office and status, with corruption kept in check under the Manus' dutiful eye, and morally bankrupt arseholes who commit the worst crimes imaginable get what's coming to them. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? The realm only gets stronger.
This segment brought to you by the Stannis Baratheon Party. Do not watch the rest of the video. Vote Stannis.
But as much as I love to simp for the one true king, I did promise at the beginning I would not be biased. All of this comes at a cost. While Stannis would indeed ensure that the realm serves you, you would in turn be expected to serve the realm. Duty above all would be emphasized, and for the rare few with the talent and work ethic, this would mean opportunity and a chance to rise in the world. But what about the rest of the small folk? Well, if you don't like your duty, tough shit. You better get on with it. You think the Manus wants this crown on his head and all these lives to be his responsibility? Does he fuck? But it's his duty and he will see it through. So stop whining and clean those bogs, you filthy peasant. Ultimately, Stannis' reign is not a reign of peace. It's a reign of order. Order that no matter how even-handed, no matter how fairly regulated, is maintained not through charismatic leadership, but through force. Everyone is dealt with fairly. That fairly bit sounds really nice, doesn't it? But the key part of that sentence is, everyone is dealt with. It matters not the scale or inconsequentiality of your crime, the law is the law, and to break it under Stannis in any capacity, regardless of the potentially morally grey context, is to invoke its hammer to come crashing down on your head, with the rarest, bordering on miracle-level exceptions. I know we use this example all the time, but if Stannis is your king, take a good look at your hands and weigh up whether or not you can do without them before you steal that loaf of bread to feed your starving family. Loyal, hard-working subjects like myself would describe Stannis' realm as a place of prosperity, security, justice, and opportunity. But non-believers may describe such governing as oppressive. And true heathens might even extend their vocabulary to tyrannical.
Treasonous words! Traitors, embrace the flames! What's that, small child? Stannis is a doo-doo head? Burn!
In the end, and perhaps rather fittingly, Stannis' reign is ultimately underscored by the question of sacrifice. Order, security, and stability. Three states of being that by their very definition cannot exist without restricting one's freedoms in one way or another, and a harmony of the three ultimately being Stannis' ideal outcome for the realm. Just how much freedom should be sacrificed in the name of order?